Here's to the finest crew in Starfleet.
When it comes to my crew, you won't get any argument from me.
This is a parody.
Paramount owns the song.
But if we change the words, then it's fair use all day long. And you will never take the greatest gin alive. Ben would rather die.
What?
No, they're not gonna sue, they got no case. Cause parody indemnifies,
protects me.
and I've got faith of the fart. Legally it's just a fart joke, it's good faith to believe I can do parody. I won't cease or desist, cause we really think it's fair use. Got free speech and guitars. I can't pay.
Could fillet.
Got no case.
Tempting fate.
Faith of the fart. Welcome to The Greatest Generation. It's a Star Trek podcast by a couple of guys just a little bit embarrassed about having a Star Trek podcast. I'm Adam Pranica.
I'm Ben Harrison. Wow.
What did you call me before we turned the mics on?
Oh,
you remember?
What did I call you, Big Buddy? Sometimes I call you Little Buddy. Today I called you Big Buddy.
Because of our relative height. I was just thinking about how, like, of all of the versions of that you get from, like, a bartender, like a cool bartender especially, or, like, just a random person you encounter. I don't like Buddy. I don't like it at all. But if someone called me Big Buddy, I would love that. I would laugh and laugh.
How about Slick? Would you like Slick?
Run Slick as an alias to the FBI. You're going to get the phone book. Do it anyway.
Oh, sure. The connotation with Slick is something that I'd like a lot. The idea that someone could consider me murderous, capable of high crime.
Yeah, well, now that you've got that teardrop tattooed on your cheek, I think a lot of people make that assumption.
No one ever calls a hardened criminal Big Buddy.
When I was growing up, one of my school chums' moms always called us sports fans. Like when we would pile into the back of the minivan to go to soccer practice or something, she would say, "Get in, sports fans."
Like, we're of compatible age, but I think there are some very meaningful distinctions between us having to do with that. Like, did you grow up in the time of transition between minivan sliding door on one side and one side only to all of a sudden there were two sliders on either side of the van? I actually went through that transition as a kid.
That was an exciting time.
Wow.
Heady days.
What a moment.
Yeah. I didn't spend a ton of time in minivans as a kid because I was an only, and
if you're a parent and you got one kid, why get a van?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why even?
I met a guy at a party that had 7 kids, and he told me he drove like a Sprinter van. Like he had like a 16 passenger van operation for his family.
I'm trying to think of the support group that you met that person in who had 7 kids, because holy moly.
Yeah. He told me he goes to Costco 3 times a week. This was a random dude I met at like a holiday party, and
was he really going for it? Because when you have 7 kids, the opportunity to party has got to be a real release.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Adam. What you're failing to factor in is 7 kids, and therefore probably very religious. So I didn't ask this man what his religion was, but he did pepper into the conversation that he was from Utah. So I did a little bit of mental math, and he was not going for it. He was not getting wasted at this party. Well, Adam, this has been a long time coming. We are now on to our 4th series on The Greatest Generation. I can't believe it.
I can't believe we made it 4 weeks. Look at our lives now. It's incredible. Like, if they did a montage, like a theme song montage for our podcast, and they showed like all the podcasting heroes that came before.
Yeah.
It's basically just all McElroys, like McElroy home movies and shit. And then Conan O'Brien, because he also invented podcasting. And then finally, like, Smartless. And then there's us.
Yeah. And two of these things are not like the others.
No.
Is what you're proposing kind of just like cross-fading video of all of the things that got us from there to here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were to read it a kind of way, some of those examples might be like the sailing ships of old. Finally, like the Chuck Yeager era jet rocket,
right?
The original space shuttle, etc.
Right.
You could probably assign who you want to any of those eras.
Yeah, we don't need to do that math for anyone.
No.
That's just a fun project to do for yourself at home.
I can't believe we're here already, Ben. What many believe to be the final era of the greatest generation. I don't believe it.
How about new?
You're more optimistic than that. You're like an Earth human.
Many people believe that this will be the series that ends Star Trek podcasting for a period of like 10 to 20 years before it comes back again.
Yeah.
What do you say we find out if that's the case?
I would love nothing less. More? Nothing more.
I would love nothing as we begin the era of Star Trek Enterprise, Ben, with Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2. It's a combo ep. It's called Broken Bow.
I've got faith of the far heart. Legally, it's just a fart joke.
Is it broken bow or broken bow? I had a question.
I mean, you'd have to ask the folks in Oklahoma.
Because it's like when the bow breaks, like the baby is going out into the star system.
But the bow is like a boat term, and I don't know if they have a lot of boats in Oklahoma. I thought the Oklahoma would refer to like Native American folks in that region.
No pan flutes in this episode, so hard to tell.
I lost a lot of money on that bet. Ben, did you read at all? Like, did you do any research about this episode? Because a couple of things stuck out.
Okay.
September 27th, 2001 is when this episode dropped.
Pretty wild.
Are you shocked?
America was ready to laugh again.
Oh, I just fell out of frame, Ben, but what caused it? And also that this whole idea sprung from the minds of Berman and Braga over, I'm just going to assume, a lot of drinks on a patio, someplace tropical. Just a couple of guys chopping it up on Star Trek ideas, just see what comes out. Just a couple red-blooded American dudes drinking Ritas and talking about maybe sexing up some Vulcans.
I love that idea. I mean, you and I have done that hang. We just didn't have the power to take it to series or anything, Just imagine
being a creator god of Star Trek and just knowing that like whatever sessions you have could create something like this. Incredible.
It is a power almost too awesome to put in the hands of one Rick Berman.
Would you believe that the very first shot of this brand new series are of a plastic caricature of a white space hero and also his son? It's like the sepia-toned past scene of father-son bonding. And I don't know how your relationship was with your dad when you were growing up and dabbling in the model making. Mm-hmm. But my dad never would have permitted painting before masking.
Wow.
That's just sloppy work, kid. You got to put some tape down on those windows. Otherwise, you're going to be scraping the paint off with an X-Acto knife.
I didn't know that was a technique that you brought down to that scale. I mean, I've obviously done like masking when I'm painting a room, but I've seen that people do it on like full-size automobiles.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize you did it on models. That's interesting.
These lines are not clean. I don't know. It kind of informed my feelings about Archer from the jump, like his attention to detail.
A little bit more of a Ben Harrison type.
I mean, I was going to save that comparison for the piloting.
Fun to see Simon Tarsus again.
Yeah.
He is Henry Archer, and the young one is Jonathan Archer, who has not yet been taught that it's not okay to just toss racial slurs around, even when you're just around your family.
Yeah, I mean, I think the assumption there is that the hobby room is a safe space.
Yeah. No, this is exactly what we want to see when people express ideas like this. Firm correction. Don't call them Ambassador Pointy. That's their term.
We get some information here about the state of the world in this scene. And what we get is that the dad is a pilot and he's working with the Vulcans on a technology for a new ship. And the Vulcans not only have a frustrating reputation, they are frustrating to work with. And so much so that the kids at school know this and make fun of the younger Archer over it.
Word has gotten out that... Can you imagine being on a playground and like the kids at school making fun of you for your dad having annoying coworkers? What? What is that?
These are very sophisticated bullies. You know, like they do the research. Yeah. And in that way, I kind of respect it. Like, don't just knock the books out of my hand and call me a dork. Like, really get personal.
Get under the skin.
With some stuff that you're not supposed to know.
Yeah, yeah. So we smash cut to 30 years later, Broken Bow and or Bow, Oklahoma. We're in a cornfield. There's a crashed ship that has carved a streak in that cornfield and a Klingon running through it.
A cornfield, a spacecraft, a Klingon, Panama.
So he is running away from some other guys. We don't get a great look at them just yet, but you know, they're firing at him. We see like the local human farmer look out on his field and see that some shit is going down in his field. So he arms himself.
He doesn't take kindly to people fucking with his corn or his daughter. Like he's got that kind of energy when he steps onto the stoop and racks that gun.
This farm actually has 2 rules.
So these mystery aliens chase the Klingon into the grain silo and...
the Klingon comes into the clearing and sees just 1 silo, and he's like, 1? How do you run a farm with just 1 silo?
So confusing. How about these aliens? Like, the door's shut behind the Klingon, and that's not a deterrent for these guys. They get all bendy, and they go underneath. They go in the gap between the door and the floor.
They're squishy guys. Mm-hmm. And, their loaf is all, like, modeled. Like they kind of have, like, human-shaped heads, but it's just, like, it's like a totally different texture, which I liked.
I really enjoyed the energy, the kinetic energy of this action scene. From the chase all the way up into the silo to the Klingon jumping out of the top of the silo. And the thing that surprised me most of all was that when this Klingon turns around to shoot the silo with these 2 aliens inside, oh boy, it blows big.
Oh, yeah.
That is not corn in that silo, right? Jet fuel's in the silo, isn't it?
Man, maybe it's jet fuel. I was thinking it was grain. You know how like certain tradesmen wear jeans with button flies instead of zipper flies because like causing a spark from your zipper inside a silo is so dangerous?
Yes.
So imagine firing a phaser at a silo.
I'm just imagining the date that a person goes on wearing those pants with that zipper, and the thing you could tell to a potential lady you're trying to seduce, like, I don't know, baby, I got to be careful with the zipper. It's explosion proof.
Has anybody ever looked into whether the jets on 9/11 had grain silos in their payloads? Because maybe that's why it was able to melt steel beams, you know?
I think some of the footage might show that tasty grain silo. I was wondering whether or not the silo was filled with something explosive, or maybe this is the only setting for a Klingon firearm. There is no stun on a Klingon dustbuster. It's just all the way up. And I love that if that's the case, this is safe distance for a Klingon.
Yeah, he is danger close when he shoots this thing off, and then the farmer runs up and trains his double-barrel shotgun on the Klingon, and the Klingon's like,
Now that's something I can really wrap my mind around. 2 barrels.
This farmer's like, I don't farm for popcorn. Bam!
Smash cut to a very controversial theme in the Star Trek canon. I feel like this one has really grown on people over the years, but
do you think?
Oh yeah, I think people have like total like nostalgia for it now.
I wonder if what has happened to this theme has happened to like Limp Bizkit. You know, like everything that was popular that then becomes deeply unpopular eventually does
Comes back around, yeah.
come back around again.
Hey, let us know on our socials whether you have nostalgia for this. So get at Greatest Trek on any social account. And if you're nostalgic for it, do hashtag nostalgia. And if you're not nostalgic for it, hashtag nostalgia. Just let us know.
I love it. I did a lot of reading about why they did this, how it was received. Ben, many people experienced this theme for the very first time at the show's premiere, like the official premiere.
Wow.
And it was all anyone could talk about after. Like, imagine taking all the air out of your show with your choice of theme. And so many people involved agreed that it was a terrible decision to make. Yet, it was their decision. Everyone who had the power to change this did not change it.
Yeah.
They stayed the course with it year after year, season after season, with some tweaks. But I was just surprised that like they knew it was a bad idea going into it and during and then up to its release. And then after the premiere, I think they had an opportunity to change it out. No, they never did. Berman and Braga wanted a U2 song as the theme. They wanted Beautiful Day as the theme and were unable or unwilling to pay for the rights for that song. They thought that would be the perfect song for the moment.
Oh man, what if what if they had gotten the rights to that but not for streaming like in perpetuity? And so this was the song that they'd like layered in later because they didn't have the original anymore.
If you want to blame Diane Warren, fuck off. Like, get the fuck out of town. Not her fault, not Russell Watson's fault. Like, they've made great music over the course of many, many years, and most of those songs have not been used as the theme for Star Trek series. I think that's the main difference here.
Almost all of them. I mean, not all of them, but almost all of them. So, yeah, I mean, I've definitely come around on this. I kind of like it now, but I can see it being a drag at the premiere to be like, hey, we like created all of these new characters and this interesting new premise.
All anyone wants to talk about is the theme song.
Yeah. Ugh. That must have been a killer.
Yeah, what's that going to be like to put in a ton of work to create a new version of a thing, and then finally it gets released to your fans and supporters, and all anyone wants to talk about is a
weird song.
Yeah, a weird song that starts it.
You guys really did that?
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, I'll never understand how that feels.
Yeah.
I won't cease or desist, 'cause we really think it's fair use.
We get our classic captain riding a shuttle to his new command sequence, but we don't get a great look at the ship during this moment.
Now we're too close.
Yeah, we're really close. We're danger close again, because this is Trip Tucker and Captain Jonathan Archer kind of doing an inspection flyby of the ship as it is getting its finishing touches put on. And they even do like a bonk test to, I guess, see if its structural integrity is up to snuff.
Got to do the bonk test before leaving space dock.
Pretty ballsy move. Like, what if somebody's on the other side of that panel and it isn't ready for the bonk test? They just get blown out into space in space dock?
I mean, that's the safest place to do it, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder, and I wasn't able to confirm this, but is Connor Trinneer, the actor playing Trip Tucker? Is he doing George W. Bush?
Oh.
Because once I heard that in his twang, I was like, I could not unhear it. And for the rest of the episode, I'm just seeing Scott Bakula and Commander George W. Bush saunter around their new starship, doing their observations. I have to admit, it became a far more enjoyable experience with that in my mind.
It fooled me. We can't get fooled again.
That was quite the era of that's my Bush getting
Yeah.
taken off of the air.
Mm-hmm.
This show rising to replace it.
Archer is wearing the hat of his ship, like a real Navy guy. You know this
Yeah.
guy, right?
Absolutely.
They're doing the inspection like you do when you get the keys to any rental car. This is a good idea, right?
Yeah, you do the walk around.
Yeah.
I mean, you make your own new dent and point it out to the guy.
You scratched the paint. Sorry.
A question I had on my mind starting here that is basically never resolved for the rest of the episode is, what would you say you do here, Trip Tucker? Because he's not the ship's helmsman, and he's flying the shuttle pod, and that's cool. But you see him pop up later on in engineering. You see him operate the transporter at the end of the episode. I know he's the XO, but he's sort of doing everything, and he's rarely ever on the bridge.
Yeah, I think he is kind of more like Scotty than Geordi in that way. Like, he's kind of a chief engineer that is just kind of like general purpose tech character.
Yeah.
Where Geordi like barely ever left engineering. Like Trip Tucker, I feel like can and does do a little bit more than that. So anyways, they get called back to Starfleet Medical, and there's a bunch of muckety-mucks, a bunch of bigwigs at Starfleet Medical, some admirals from Starfleet and some Vulcan ambassadorial staff, including Thomas Kopachi, are standing outside of a OR, or like a intensive care unit that's got a bunch of glass separating them from the Klingon lying inside. And I loved the idea that like the Vulcans are kind of like trying to explain what a Klingon is to humans that are like, no, surely not.
It's a Klingon. A Klingon.
As excited as you were about seeing Thomas Kopachi, I was just as excited seeing Jim Beaver, and a young Beaver at that.
Yeah, young Beaver.
Who would have thought? He's one of the greats. I only recognized him by voice, basically. He looks so young.
Yeah, and the main ambassador guy is Gary Graham, who passed this year. RSVP Gary Graham.
I love the... Let's talk about the energy that John Archer has entering this room full of important dignitaries. He just barges in, asking to be read in on the situation.
No, like, salute for the admirals.
No.
He, like, shakes one of their hands and then kind of, like, pushes the Vulcans aside.
Yeah. What he's read in on is what we need to be read in on, which is Clang, the guy on the hospital bed. He's got information he was trying to bring back to Kronos, and seeing as how he's down for the count, that's going to be hard to do. And the feeling in the air is like, well, because the Klingons live in a culture where death in many ways is more valued than life, we're just going to let this guy croak and then transfer his body back to his home world, and then the job will be done. But
So wait, just so I know I'm keeping track, the Klingons want Clang and the Vulcans want him to croak?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's it. And Archer like barges into what I hope is not some sort of like clean medical area.
Yeah.
Goes on in there, asks the doctor what the deal is.
Excuse me. Is this man dead?
This doctor, later we learn his name, Phlox. And the doc's like, hey, no promises. I'm doing what I can to stabilize the situation. Like, this guy's great. This guy from Jump. I love the doctor.
The doc rules. Yeah, Archer kind of persuade, like, the Vulcans are riding hard for let this guy die. That will be the most satisfactory outcome for the Klingons, and therefore we won't have a diplomatic incident. And Archer's like, no fucking way. We're taking this guy back to his home world now that we have this great new ship.
The Vulcans are like, have you ever given a ride to a Klingon before? Trust me when I say it is better if they are dead. The cleanup somehow is easier than if they are alive.
The only Klingon rideshare app users that have 5 stars are dead Klingon rideshare app users.
Your metaphor is crude, but accurate.
This gives Archer a great idea. He's like, look, you know how we have that ship in space dock ready to go and I'm its captain and we're kind of waiting for a mission? Well, there it sits.
Yeah.
How about you give me the Uber mission? We throw this guy up on the ship. We cruise on out of there. We drop him off at Kronos. It's going to be great. It's going to be great for humanity, is what I'm trying to say. Not just me.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
This is persuasive to the Admiral, who breaks the bad news to the Vulcans. There's also this tension that, we mentioned in the flashback scene, but has persisted 30 years, which is that humans kind of feel like the Vulcans have thrown a governor on their technological advancement and are kind of trying to keep them somewhat earthbound. And Archer is just about done with that. So he's like, let me do this mission. I will go out into the cosmos.
If you were doing a ranking in this century of Star Trek of the trash of the galaxy, do you think it's humans at the bottom?
I mean, they seem to smell like worse than other aliens. Like the Vulcans don't complain at all about the Klingon guy, but they mention.
I kind of get that feeling.
Yeah. The humans are these like hold my beer upstarts that the Vulcans are very trepidatious about.
Back on Enterprise, we meet a couple more crew people. This is Malcolm Reed and Ensign Travis Mayweather, and they're observing transporter technology that is a pretty new thing. For now, it's only used for cargo, and neither of them are excited about being among the first living things to take a trip on this thing.
I don't think I'm quite ready to have my molecules compressed into a data stream.
I had a little bit of a complaint about the way this was written, because like one of the cargo things that they beam up is like not the thing that they wanted. And I was like, are you not going to like do a bit about like, you asked for one thing and this transporter beams up something entirely the other?
Yeah, that's a great call.
It was right there, and they did not engage with that at all. It was like, it was driving me nuts in this scene.
Reed and Mayweather meet up with Commander George W. Bush in engineering, and everyone's super gushy about how awesome this engine is and how fast they can go. There's some real enthusiasm about getting out on those space streets and hitting the gas.
Yeah, really want to open this bad boy up. They're getting ready to go up to like warp 4.5 or something, which is a big deal for humans. I mean, I'm looking forward to it too. That sounds cool as hell.
We're dodging around quite a bit here. We're meeting new crew people because part of the moment is about assembling a crew complement. And a very important part of the crew is going to be that communications officer. Archer's first choice is in Brazil, and she's teaching a language class to a bunch of students that he interrupts. And when he pulls her off to the side, she's like, look, I'm a great teacher. Obviously, that's why you want me. But I'm so great, I'm not going to ditch these students. And all he has to do is needle drop the audio recording on this Klingon.
Turn it up.
Now that's something I can really wrap my mind
Think of it.
around.
You'd be the first human to talk to these people.
2 barrels.
You really want someone else to do it?
And she is like, oh, let me at those sounds.
Yeah, she loves that guttural language.
Yeah. I don't even think she says goodbye to these students. Like,
Yeah, they just keep walking.
you remember every time a teacher had to leave the classroom, they were like, okay, read the next 10 pages of this book or whatever. And they go and do whatever important business is out in the hall. Like, I got to believe that Hoshi does this.
Right.
It's like, all right, keep working on those vowel sounds and I'll be right back. And then cut to that night and the crickets are chirping and
that guy's still just trying to like practice the.
you'll never get it, Dan. Why don't you stop trying?
You're just not cut out for this, Dan. Try switching careers.
You'll never be able to roll your tongue. Hey, how do you know that? Your girlfriend told me. Shut up!
You're saying Dan's alien language interpreting career is dead on arrival because he also sucks at giving head?
Yeah. He also cannot satisfy his girlfriend.
But if we change the words, then it's fair use all day long.
So on Enterprise, there's one last position to fill. And it's got to be a Vulcan, right? A Vulcan's got to be the chaperone on this mission. And Archer explains to W that this sub-commander T'Pol is going to be their science officer, thus kicking off a long tradition of Vulcan science officers, a great tradition in Star Trek. And she meets them in this ready room. She is not thrilled about having a dog around.
I hope Porthos isn't too offensive to you.
Dog germs!
She's not thrilled to be there. She's not thrilled to shake hands with Trip. And Archer feels the same way. He's like, look, I don't want you tattling on me. I know how you Vulcans are. You're always judging us.
Yeah.
Making me feel uncomfortable.
You're messy alien bitches who love drama, and you're just going to gossip about everything that happens on this ship.
They're on the same level, I feel like. They don't want each other around, and when she turns to leave, you get the first of many shots of this character leaving the room. And hearing me describe it, you might think, oh, we're just showing Jolene Blaylock's body in a catsuit leaving the room. No. We see the back of T'Pol's head so often in this episode. It's like they're making a point of her weird hairstyle. I couldn't get over it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a this ain't Tuvix kind of thing. Like they just want to make sure that we see that the Vulcan adjacent character isn't going to be a Tuvix on this show.
She is not good with dogs. Porthos the Beagle, I gotta say, is probably not a great breed for long-term starship deployment, right?
Yeah, where's it gonna bury stuff? Like, when it howls in this echoey-ass ship, like, that's gonna be deafening for people.
Beagles are so fucking loud. Oh my god. You never hear him bark.
He's a well-behaved boy.
Science fiction. That's what this show is. Ben, you can't launch the ship before doing a ceremony. This ceremony, completely without champagne. Instead, you get Admiral Forrest doing a speech, and then I think this is a good job by him. He's not doing great at the speech, so he throws to a video, and this video has Zeph from Cochran in it, and it's filmed 32 years ago at the Warp 5 complex.
Yeah, so this is a nice little cameo, and I thought that this was really nice connective tissue to, build a bridge between First Contact and this moment. And Henry Archer is in the background of this shot, like they're excited about starting to work on a Warp 5 engine. This is when we realize the extent to which Jonathan Archer is just a Nepo baby. Like, no wonder he walks into a room full of admirals and diplomats and, acts like he owns the place.
Yeah, this is not Chuck Yeager. This is Biff Yeager.
I also just wanted to say, I thought it was a nice choice that we see a very cleaned up version of Zephram Cochran. Like, there's not an ounce of Oobie Doobie in the version of the man making the speech at the Warp 5 complex,
There's neither Oobie nor Doobie about this guy. He's got his buttons buttoned all the way up to the neck.
Yeah. No, weird fingerless gloves or, duster jacket. He's a clean-cut version of the guy.
He gave up the booze and the women.
Yeah.
He was in it for the women, remember?
That's Zephram Cochran. That's his vision.
Money. You remember his line read?
Yeah.
Money. Women. Money. You know what I want? Money. Women. Riker's like, why do you have to... What? Why are you saying it like that?
You know one of my favorite parts of Chinese cuisine? Mung beans.
Just in case you forgot how important Jonathan Archer's relationship with his perfect father was, we get just the briefest of flashbacks of it going in to the model. The engine, I mean.
Was that a little warp core?
Seems that way, yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like it could kind of fly itself around, right?
Yeah. I mean, Dad had a little radio control for that.
Yeah.
He was flying that thing around. We cut back to the Enterprise where Archer is taking the big chair, and he gives the order to leave space dock and go to warp with the words, money.
Pretty solid starship porn, and they go to warp, and we smash cut to a weird, like, cloudy part of space with a space station in it, and one of these lumpy guys that we saw chasing the Klingon at the beginning walks into the room, and he's kind of like phasing in and out of existence, and he's talking to a shadowy figure in an energy column, and basically like taking orders from this shadowy figure.
Yeah.
He's got bad news for shadowy figure. I lost 2 of my guys, and they didn't capture this Klingon. Be great for me if you could prevent their deaths. A noteworthy sentence construction, I thought.
Yeah.
And this shadowy figure is like, no, we're not here to like clean up your messes. Get that Klingon. Gotta get him.
We're here to continue fighting a temporal cold war.
Whoa.
How about that? You know what that means, Ben? Time travel. Money.
Don't try to be a great man. Try to be a money man.
It's rhetorical nonsense.
Aren't you glad they convinced Dr. Phlox to join the crew? Because in 6 Bay, Archer's there, just like wanting to get to know more about him. And in doing so, you get to meet Phlox, know him a little better, but also all of his strange medical supplies.
Yeah.
Some of them living.
Got a lot of little critters, and some of them, yeah, like the critters are his sort of frontier medicine approach to making the compounds that he needs to do medicine. And he's part of this medical rotation where different species exchange physicians so that they can learn from one another. Something organized by the Vulcans that sounds decidedly non-shitty compared to the way they've tried to hold humanity back on the getting out to warp thing.
This whole idea makes so much sense to me that medical advances on just one planet would go from leeches and bloodletting to future medical science as we know it today and maybe in the future up until you reach first contact. And then when your universe goes from a planet into a galaxy, you need to start all over again with frontier medicine.
Yeah.
In order to exist out there. I think it's a great concept.
I do too. Phlox is such a fun guy to be around. He's so like unflappable. He's like, yeah, this is just like kind of a cool little project you got me on. So I'm curious as anyone.
As much as I like Phlox, I do get the sense that he's a guy that hits a little bit of the gas before he puts the mask on you. You know?
Yeah.
If we're going to try to embrace new worlds, you must try to embrace new ideas.
He's got gas mask energy.
He does. Especially when he does that creepy ass smile at the end of the scene. You're like, are we supposed to be on acid, or does his mouth naturally do that?
I did not like that moment.
What's that like creepy character that like teens send each other as a prank that does that? That like freaky smile character?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh.
Is it the ghost mask from Scream when he smokes the weed in Scary Movie?
What's up?
It does have the Scary Movie
Yeah.
Scream ghost. energy to it.
Ben, a truly bizarre sequence happens after this, and I want to know if you clocked this. Commander George W. Bush is revealed to be late for dinner by the end of it. But instead of going straight to this dinner, he goes to hang out upside down with Mayweather, who's in a part of the ship where the gravity is reversed.
And crucially learns that Mayweather has hooked up with 3 boobed alien ladies.
Right.
You know that firsthand? First hand, second hand, third hand.
And then he goes to the mess hall where he's offered a place to sit and have a meal. And he's like, no, not for me. I'm eating with the captain. And then in the captain's mess, he goes to meet up with Archer and T'Pol for dinner. And he's late for that. And he has to apologize for being late. Why were you late? What were you doing in the mess hall? I thought he was in the mess hall, like going to bring something to dinner, like appetizers or like a bottle of wine or something. He doesn't have shit.
No. This is a chief engineer that is not Six Sigma, you know, like he just fucks around all day, you know?
He is a real fuck around engineer. He apologizes for being late, but no one apologizes for it being awkward in this room between T'Pol and Archer and him.
Yeah. She is a vegetarian, and they have great big beef steaks that they want to eat in front of her, despite her obvious discomfort with this.
Did you clock the split diopter between steak in the foreground and T'Pol in the back? Fucking great.
Excellent use of split diopter. I had a real problem with when you're trained to drop plates on tables at a restaurant, it's always protein facing the diner. And one of these plates goes in front of Captain Archer with the baked potato closest to him and the steak further away. And I was like, who does that?
I got to admit, I'm starting with the potato if a steak and potato hits the table. Am I crazy?
Wow. I would wait on the potato personally because it's usually way too hot and it needs a lot more time to be bite ready than the steak.
My favorite kind of restaurant is steakhouse restaurant, and I've never really given it that much thought about what I'm eating first.
You remain impulsive carnivores.
Yeah.
Because usually in a steakhouse, the steak is just a plate with a steak on it. Like it's not a plate with a steak and a piece of kale and...
I'm usually about 4 martinis in by the time the steak hits the table, so
yeah,
that's part of it.
You're not worried about burning your mouth on a piping hot baked potato.
No.
It's a very weird scene also because like a big plate of like maybe ratatouille or something is put in front of T'Pol, and then every time it cuts to the close-up of her plate, it's just an empty plate with one breadstick on it, and she's like trying to cut it with a fork and knife. Like what happened to the other thing that she was served?
She's trying to make a point by eating Costanza style in front of them.
Forgive me for trying to class up this place.
She's like, how do you eat breadsticks? With your hands?
Before I was a Vulcan ambassador, I was Mr. Pitt's personal assistant, and this kind of just caught me off guard, but I'm really into it now.
They argue back and forth about the judgments that T'Pol has about humanity, and the punctuation on the conversation is T'Pol successfully fork and knifing this breadstick without breaking it, making a point about... cricket sounds, I guess.
Face of the fart. No, they're not gonna sue. They got no case. Cause parody indemnifies me, and I've got faith.
Later on the bridge, Hoshi Sato is skittish about the bumps they're enduring in transit, and she does not have any patience for T'Pol. And T'Pol doesn't have any patience for her. They fucking hate each other from jump.
They shoot daggers at each other back and forth.
What do you think about T'Pol's Vulcanness up until this point? Here's what I think. I think acting Vulcan is maybe one of the hardest things an actor can do, especially an actor who is very charismatic. And I think it has got to be really hard to turn it off, to like put your light completely under a basket.
Yeah.
I think there is a moment in this episode where T'Pol comes around to being recognizably Vulcan, but that's a little while from now. And this scene is an example of that. Like,
she is clearly upset with Sato.
Yeah, I think that every actor that winds up playing a Vulcan has that early learning curve moment, and I'll be curious to see how this character develops over the series because, she's definitely a little bit different from some of the other ones that we've met over the years. We get called down to sickbay where, like, they are, like, pushing the ship to warp 4.4, which seems like a bigger deal than they're making of it in this moment. Like, it seems like this is, like, the fastest humans have ever gone, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no banner that drops.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay, well, we got to go down to sickbay, so that's great. But they go down there, and the Klingon is woken up. And I had not clocked this guy until now, but this is Tiny Lister Jr. He's one of the all-time that guys.
Yeah, incredible casting. I love it.
Yeah, and like the kind of like guy that I want cast as Klingons more often than not, like huge, physically imposing people is my favorite kind of Klingon.
Absolutely.
And this guy is it.
In this era, no one was more imposing than Tiny Lister.
Yeah.
Cast as Klingon, Tiny Lister.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to do it, so I'm glad you did. Big language barrier here. No subtitles to help us out. No nothing.
No.
We do hear the word Stovokor, and that needs no translation for us. I kept thinking, like, what if this was your first Star Trek thing watching this episode? And I think that they do a really good job in this pilot overall of it being this is the first of a series for somebody that's totally uninitiated, and this is the first of a series for people that have already watched Star Trek. Like, I think it does a really nice job on both sides of that line.
I liked seeing more of a Klingon's body than I can remember seeing in a while. Like, you see his feet.
Yeah.
You see his chest.
The ridges go all the way down, Adam.
We never saw this much of Worf. Did we?
Worf have ridges on his feet?
I don't know. I imagine Worf is not a big sandals guy.
No. While they're having this conversation, the lights go out. RSVP main tower. Up on the bridge, they like have a sensor reading that they're like, oh, maybe there's something out there. But they're getting that reading right as the power is going out. So no way to double check it or verify or anything. And I loved this shot when it cut to the hallway and there were just three of these creepy dudes climbing down it, kind of Spider-Man style, or maybe like even more like alien xenomorph style.
They did a good job with the creep factor on these Suluban.
Yeah. They're in sickbay. They're like creeping around in sickbay. It seems like they can either go invisible or like, you know, do the Garden State thing where they're wearing a shirt that looks exactly like the wallpaper behind them.
Oh, I thought you meant one of the Suluban is listening to headphones and then like puts the headphones onto Sato. That's how she knows someone else is in the room. Like the invisible headphones are put on her head. This song is going to change your life.
Wow.
And it's the theme song to Enterprise. And she's like, oh, I hate it.
Who's doing those harmonies? They suck.
You know what? You compared the Suluban skulking to Xenomorph, and the way that this dark scene explodes into action is a lot like an alien film.
Yeah. And it's so scary, like when one of them like falls from the ceiling onto the Klingon, and all of the Starfleets in the room are so distracted with fighting the other one and like getting the crewman off the floor who got attacked, that when the lights come back up, the Klingon is gone, baby, gone.
Whoever was shooting coverage of Hoshi Sato waving her flashlight around did yeoman's work here, because they use so much of it as filler.
Yeah.
Like, it is great. They probably got 10 seconds of her doing it, and they used 20 seconds of it.
Yeah, there's a couple of reused clips.
Yeah.
Would you say they did Yeoman Rand's work?
No, that's a different kind of work.
Yeah, okay.
That work is done in the dark.
Mm.
No flashlights.
More fun that way, you know?
So the power comes back on, and on the bridge, Archer is pissed. He's pissed at how his ship systems failed him. He's pissed at how he didn't see this coming. He takes it personally in a very unusual way. And even T'Pol is like, look, man, shit happens out here in deep space. Like, stop making it about you.
And she is kind of operating from we lost the Klingon, so mission over, and is kind of assuming that they're just heading back for Earth.
Yeah.
And this feeling of chagrin that Archer is experiencing is like enough for him to call her into the ready room and be like, we are not going back to Earth. We're doing this fucking mission.
So take your Vulcan cynicism and bury it along with your repressed emotions.
Your reaction to this situation is a perfect example of why your species should remain in its own star system.
I love the version of this that is so much like Star Trek VI, where basically Archer in front of T'Pol is like, I hate the Vulcans and I always have. I've never forgiven him for the death of my father's career.
She's like, are you sure you want to say that on the record?
Let it go, man.
Yeah. I liked his ready room being like kind of cramped, like submarine style.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
The temptation with a new show with more money is make all the sets big and roomy. And I think that they did a nice job making some of these feel real cramped and naval in vibe.
I do like that.
So he goes down after this big blowout with T'Pol to Sickbay, where Phlox is doing an autopsy on this Suluban and has discovered some weird things about his anatomy. He's like, yeah, this guy is not standard issue Suluban. He's been heavily genetically altered, and we don't know why.
Are you saying he's some kind of a mutant?
Oh, well, I suppose I am, but this was no accident.
This scene reminded me a lot of the scene in Star Trek Picard with the autopsy of the changeling. Like, you really get close up to those guts.
Yeah, that looks good.
Phlox is, like, blown away by this guy and his genetic modifications. He's impressed. Like, I love the enthusiasm that he has basically in every scene, the vigor he has for his job.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I think that it's easy to compare this character to Neelix because of that vigor, but like there's such a different energy behind it, you know? Like it's so much less grating currently, you know?
I mean, I wonder if it will eventually grate, but for right now, I think it's a great companion to the fuck around guys that are on the ship at every other station, you know? So one of those fuck around guys is in engineering with T'Pol, and she is just smashing his nuts about how stupid their tech is on the ship.
Your sensors aren't capable of isolated plasma decay.
How can you be so damn sure what our sensors can do?
Vulcan children play with toys that are more sophisticated.
Hoshi walks in and has translations of what the Klingon was babbling about. She has pretty much everything figured out except for a handful of words that she didn't know. One of which was Rigel 10, which is the planet he was on before he was on Earth. So they're like, well, that's as good a place as any to start our search, like see if we can pick up the trail there.
And that's the plan. Meanwhile, in that Suluban station, Klang is just getting worked over. He's filled with truth-telling drugs. And this is so frustrating as an interrogator or a torturer. Like, you're just really giving the Klingon the business, and he's just not giving you anything. Like, you're just dialing up that scissorp to the max.
Yeah.
Nothing actionable. Like, the best this guy can do is Sarin, the name Sarin.
Yeah.
That's the courier that Klang encountered.
It's the courier that Klang encountered, one of my favorite neurotoxins.
Oh, yeah.
Just all around popular item.
I hope we meet Sarin and she's wearing a string of pearls around her neck. That'd be nice.
Yeah, wrapped in a thin film of plastic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, incredibly unstable.
On Enterprise's launch bay, this is a new set for us.
Yeah.
Archer's telling the Dustbuster Club that, look, guys, we're going to a bazaar, a Star Trek bazaar. And T'Pol's like, y'all better be fucking cool down there, all right? Not like how I've seen you act basically the entire episode up until now, because no one has seen a human down there.
You have a tendency to be gregarious. I suggest you try to restrain that tendency.
Good first impressions, all right?
Yeah.
All around.
Eyes forward, hands 10 and 2. Like you know, they're going to be gawking at your weird loafless features, and you just need to like maintain.
They're looking for the courier that Klang met, and that means there's a pretty good chance that they're talking about Sarin.
Yeah. So away they go, and Rigel 10 is a very snowy place, and they enter this bazaar, and sure enough, full of like steam and dangling chains and open barrels full of flame. I thought I spotted the hollow matrix from Voyager in the background of some of these shots. It looked like they just like took some pieces of that and just like threw it in the background to like give texture to scenes.
I think this should come in a box. The science fiction bazaar setup. Like if you're a set carpenter or whatever, like you should just be able to buy this off the rack at this point.
Yeah. Star Trek IKEA just has kits.
Yeah. You gotta have exotic dancers with super long tongues, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and their pimp. You gotta have him in this scene too.
There is a lumpy thumb that is plying his trade as a pimp, trying to get Reed and Mayweather to book some one-on-one time with these alien exotic dancers.
It seems like they barely resist this, right?
Yeah. I mean, neither of them seem to be spoken for. Like, what a great opportunity, right?
Is this a ship of single folks?
Yeah, I think it is.
Huh.
So far it is.
Whoa. Okay.
Got free speech and guitars.
In another part of the station, Trip observes a parent with a child struggling to breathe, and he thinks what's happening here is torture, but T'Pol tells him that it's actually just a weaning process. This is a sort of alien that is birthed and grows up in an air environment of one sort of gas, and that they need to be weaned off of that in order to breathe the oxygen in this environment. And look, man, if you're just going to start jumping to conclusions every time you see an alien interaction, I'm just going to send you back to the ship.
Every time you see a child that appears to be suffering, if you like start to try and intervene, that's not going to work for you out here, man.
Or if you hear like the cries of a woman being beaten by a monster behind a door, like you just got to let that shit go. Yeah, there's like many, many scenes that Trip falls for. I guess suggesting that he is a rube.
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of all are, but Trip seems to be the one that's like the silliest about it.
Yeah.
And also seeing the craziest shit of anyone.
He's like a Ruben. His naivete is piled high.
Yeah. Hoshi and the captain are in another steamy, warehousey, factory-looking place, and they see a couple of Klingons.
A lot of chains.
Tons of chains. They radio up to let everyone know, like, we think we're close. We think we're onto the trail. And pretty quickly they get into a great big fight with some Sulubans who grab them and kind of like pull them into the smoke. And this felt like probably where episode 1 theoretically ends and episode 2 theoretically begins, right?
It was hard to tell.
Yeah.
It felt pretty smooth to me.
Yeah, like this is one of those ones where it's like it's listed as part 1 and 2, and I don't really understand like what the point of that is in just call it episode 1. Like, why is it called part 1 and 2? It's one thing.
It's a moment that reads as dun dun dun, but in the aftermath is revealed to be like, these are good Suluban.
Yeah, they're just locking everybody up while the captain gets to talk to Sarin.
Yeah, look, they just need to lock them up so they can figure things out.
Right. Is that so bad? Is that such a bad thought?
Sarin comes out from behind a cargo container, and she is beautiful. Yeah. She's Melinda Clark from the OC.
She is. And she is, she's really like slinking around. She's a very Very sexy sequence where she's kind of trying to seduce Archer. We find out that this kissy moment is, in fact, because she needs to touch someone to find out if they're trustworthy, and that's one of her genetic modifications.
Can you just see fucking Berman and Braga, like, sitting on a patio getting a huge laugh about this? Well, how is she going to be able to tell if he's telling the truth? Make him kiss!
She has to suck his dick. Okay, but like for broadcast, we'll make it that they have to kiss.
I love the take that Bakula has here, because when she changes from Melinda Clark into the Suluban, he's like, ooh, did that come from me?
That's never happened before.
He kind of feels responsible for her transformation. No, that's not it at all.
Very funny line. She's determined that he is a trustworthy person. She was helping Klang get back to the High Council on Kronos with information about how the Suluban have been stoking tensions within the Empire by like making attacks look like they're coming from rival houses and stuff. And this is all a part of a cabal that she is now fighting against that are fighting a temporal Cold War.
Temporal? You've lost me.
She would like Archer's help to finish Klang's mission because since he's been grabbed by the bad guys, she needs to get this info to the Klingons, but she does not have a starship.
This moment runs out of time, like many moments do in this part of the episode, because the phaser fire comes in again.
Yeah.
It's fight scene, fight scene, fight scene. The Suluban have found them. Run for it, Marty.
Yeah, they got to get out of there. Sarin catches a stray.
Yeah.
And buys the farm. RSVP Sarin. We barely knew ye. And then they get out onto out to the parking lot, and like, you know, like Reed has like a huge air conditioner in a box, and T'Pol's carrying a goldfish in a bag, and they can't find their car.
Really long action sequence on the roof of this building.
Yeah.
Pretty long shootout here where Archer gets hit, and they finally all pile into the shuttle, and T'Pol takes command here, not just of the shuttle, but of the Enterprise. We get a flashback here. Archer hit in the leg, probably in an artery, probably starting to bleed out pretty bad here, hence the flashback, where he crashes his RC spacecraft into the sand, and he blames the wind, and his dad is like, it's like the Christopher Cross song, son. You gotta ride like the wind. On Enterprise, the scene that I've heard about before watching it takes place. This is in the decontamination chamber. Dr. Phlox has told T'Pol and George W. that they got covered in spores, and what they need to do is rub themselves and each other with lube.
You guys made a very sexy mistake, and now you've got to pay for it.
Berman and Braga are like, look, if the last scene with the kissing and the telling of the truth doesn't make much sense, we got to raise the sexual stakes here.
Right.
Let's get some body touching.
Let's really like use these two underwear models for all they're worth, and specifically one of the underwear models for all she's worth.
I can understand the reason this needs to happen. Decontamination on an alien world, I totally get it. Like, the reason that the necessity exists makes sense to me. I even get the rubbing of lube on themselves and each other. What I don't get are the singles on the boobs and the singles on the legs, and what kind of looks like a chubby that Tuck's got on the very brief pan past his briefs.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't show that on TV.
He definitely...
Get that out of here.
He definitely zhuzhed himself before this scene, right?
These are both beautiful people, and who doesn't like looking at beautiful people? But the lingering lasciviousness of the camera here, I found it shocking.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because like there's nothing to suggest the potential of this ever. Like if there was an example of oh yeah, Star Trek's getting a little cheeky.
Right.
Like, I could understand that this is more of a pattern of this. There was no pattern that makes this likely.
It's been a long time since I've watched this series. I remember this being a thing that happens more than once.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think they come back to this. I think they go harder at this.
With different people?
No, I think it's basically a T'Pol thing. Like, always getting contaminated down on the surface.
Like, people on Dustbuster clubs with T'Pol are constantly, like, throwing spores at her. Oh, T'Pol! You got spores on you again! Oh, I got spores on me! Oh, they're in my mouth and genitals! Oh, here's some for my butthole!
I'm gonna need your help rubbing some gel on this.
Turn around.
It's a weird choice. I mean, like, I'm all for horny Star Trek, don't get me wrong.
It's weird that we get the Brazzers logo in this scene.
That is a strange choice that they made.
Yeah.
Archer wakes up in sickbay with an osmotic eel cleaning his wound, leech-like. And I like that he was like pretty hurt for the rest of the episode. Like he's always like limping around after this.
T'Pol and George W. roll in. I don't think this is right after the lube scene, because I would imagine there's an interstitial scene where you got to wipe off the lube. You can't just go straight into a uniform after that, right?
Oh, yeah. It'd be kind of gross and clammy, right?
Like pulling on a wet swimsuit. Ugh.
Yeah, so this isn't going great. Like when we rented the Airbnb, we kind of like didn't anticipate how many swimsuits we were going to need. And like this one didn't dry. So we're like kind of wanting to go home. But T'Pol, having assumed command of the ship, did not just go do what she would do. She thought, what would Archer do in this situation? And did that. So they are continuing to track the Suluban that have the Klingon that they're chasing, having modified the ship's sensors to trace these plasma particles.
What a great bit of news this is for Archer. He's like, you didn't disappoint or humiliate me at all.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
And I like the symmetry of this, like where in that previous scene, she assumes like mission over, we're going to Earth, and she's wrong. And now he assumes mission over, we're going to Earth, and he's wrong.
This is kind of the thing, like when you expect the worst from people, when you get not the worst from them, it's like pure oxygen. Like, whoa. Yeah,
it's disarming.
Wow. Ben, this is also the scene that I thought was the pivot point for T'Pol, where she resembles a Vulcan the most. And from here until the end of the episode, she reads as familiar in that way, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting observation. It's so shocking for the captain that he's like doing a captain's log about it later. And he's like, he keeps pausing and he's like, that's so fucking wild. And he's like talking to his dog. Like, you ever heard of a Vulcan doing anything like this? And his dog is like, I don't talk, man. Dog.
The dog does start talking and he's like, man, what was in that eel? I feel great right now. And Porthos is talking to me?
Hell yeah.
Oh, man.
Whoa, that's so intense.
My ready room couch goes all the way across the ready room. Oh, I got 2 couches and 2 beagles. Woo!
And you will never take the greatest gin alive. Ben would rather die.
What?
They drop out of warp, and he's like, "Duh fuck," and he goes up to the bridge, and it turns out they just gotten to where the ship went that they were tracking.
Mm-hmm.
They're in orbit of a gas giant that has a lot of radiation in its upper atmosphere that has like dissipated the warp trail. And for a second, they think like this was just like a going across a stream so that the trail goes cold and the bloodhounds can't keep tracking the fugitive or whatever. But it turns out that they are able to like configure the sensors again to see that a whole bunch of Suluban ships have gone into the atmosphere of this planet. So this is where everybody's going.
This seemed a little unnecessary, like after the last scene where it seems like T'Pol and Archer are going to get along, to get a scene where it's like, oh, now everyone's getting along and working together and like doing science to solve a mystery that didn't seem mysterious at all. Like This is a path heading toward a planet.
I mean, I think it was padding probably just because they didn't get enough footage of Hoshi waving her flashlight around in the earlier scene. They were just like, we got to like fill some time here.
Yeah. They used all the flashlight and all the lube. And they still need to make time.
So they go inside this gas giant, get some bumps, and then they find this space station that we saw earlier. And they're like getting bangers because it's like a modular space station. All these like little pods connect to it.
I like it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's really good looking. Some of them are shooting at them, and they don't want to use the transporter to get aboard the space station. So they use the grappler, which is another like, this is like one of those scenes in a pilot that's like, here's a thing that the ship can do.
Isn't it wild how in the pilot of Star Trek The Next Generation, there was a grappler?
Wow.
And in the pilot of Enterprise, there's a grappler?
That is wild. I also thought it was wild that in the pilot of The Next Generation, they played the entire theme song again when they showed them separating the saucer section. And in this, they played the entire theme song again when they grapple that one pod. And we're back. So they got to like study up on how to work the pod.
Yeah.
It seems like Mayweather like learned how to do it and is now teaching Trip how to work it, which just feels like inefficient. Like, shouldn't Trip have just been the one to like learn up on it?
I hated this for Mayweather. Mayweather's the qualified pilot, and for some reason Archer tells him he needs him on Enterprise. Really?
What, to sit there in like one position? Because the plan is that Enterprise is just going to stay in one spot while they go do the mission.
If you're giving me the choice of an Uber driver who has driven in this country before, understands the traffic laws and whatever, like from experience, and one who's just winging it, 5 stars to the first one.
How complicated can it be? Up, down, forward, reverse? Figure it out.
Unbelievable. Not a great Mayweather episode.
Yeah. It's sad, really. They get some Bond gadgets on their way out. Reed gives them a gadget that will like demagnetize the space station and a briefcase with some new pistols. And he's like, oh, these are our new weapons. And it's like, didn't you guys have guns in the previous space station you were at? Like,
yeah, why didn't they get them then?
I don't know. Like, what were they shooting then, if not these?
I get a weird vibe from Reed as the tactical guy. Like, he seems kind of indifferent to matters of security and weapons and so forth.
Yeah.
Like, unless you told me he was the security guy, I don't think there's very much evidence of that in the pilot.
So far, not so much. But so they get to the space station and they do like a little orbit around it. And I love that they bumped into it by accident because Trip isn't that good at piloting.
That's a nice callback.
And then they connect and they start sneaking around and start bullseyeing bad guys.
It is weird that when Trip comes into contact with this other ship, like it smears a bunch of lube onto it. That's going to be a theme.
Yeah, is that thing where like the screen thinks he's trying to do a multi-touch gesture and it's just because he left like a glob of goo on another part when he was tapping something.
Enterprise continues to take bangers, and it doesn't seem like they are long for their position in the atmosphere, but they can't move the ship because that means Archer and George W. won't know where to find them afterwards.
Right. So they're in a bit of a pickle. Meanwhile, Archer and Trip find Clang in a clip show device and are somehow able to persuade him to like come with them. Like he's ready to start ripping their heads off when they first wake him up. But
this is like waking up a Benjamin R. Harrison.
Yeah. No, it's fucking dangerous as fuck.
I really don't want to have to carry you out of here.
He is a real asset for their skulking around the corridors in the hand-to-hand combat department. He really kicks a lot of ass.
Yeah, but not so much in the stealth department.
Nah.
He's yelling crazy shit and drawing a lot of unwanted attention toward them.
So Archer places the device from the ship onto a panel. And once it detonates, it sends out this wave that causes all of the linked ships to separate. And I love this cut to the exterior when you see all of them float away. And even from the interior, you see them kind of blurp out of their holes.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
It was really well done. And George W. and Klang have gotten aboard a pod, but Archer didn't quite make it for some reason. That felt kind of arbitrary to me.
It truly did, yeah.
So,
but also there was never going to be room for all three of them in that pod, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, Klang is fucking huge.
Yeah,
not called tiny for nothing.
No.
They've moved the Enterprise at this point, and they gotta like figure out where the pod is. I thought that this whole sequence where T'Pol was in charge on the bridge of the Enterprise was great for her because she seems like super capable and, quick on her feet and making good choices as a leader.
It's weird to say this because she's a Vulcan, but you see a pattern of this in a lot of movies and TV, which is like the fuck around character gets given an opportunity for responsibility and all of a sudden like snaps into capability.
Right.
Like you see Jim Kirk to do this in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, but she's Vulcan. She was always capable. Something about her changes. And you're right. She's a great captain in these moments.
Yeah, it's cool to see. On the Enterprise, W is arguing like we need to go back and get the captain, and T'Pol is like, there's so many of those fucking ships out there. Like there's no way we can safely do that. That's insane. And you sort of wonder if there's going to be a Crimson Tide moment here because, like, who is T'Pol even to be left in charge of this ship? Trip Tucker's the XO, isn't he?
Yeah.
I guess he isn't. I guess she is.
Yeah, that's part of their conflict. Archer really has nothing to do on the Suluban base besides explore. Like, he's just got to wait for pickup.
Yeah.
And he picks up this strange energy reading on his tricorder and follows it into the Temporal 1 conference room. And he is really tripped out by it. The way that we've seen the other characters experience this place, he kind of blurs around on his way in there and he hears a ghostly voice from the shadows.
This guy's scary.
And all the snacks from the previous meeting are still there, uneaten, and that's creepy. Like, where did they go? Like, a bunch of half-drank water bottles on the conference room table. Like, clean up after yourselves, guys.
Yeah, they're still logged into different Zoom rooms. It's like, what is this? Ugh.
Yeah. Archer finally encounters the Suluban in the room, and this guy really wants Archer to leave. That part seems very important to him.
Yeah.
Important enough for this Suluban to hit Archer with a running spear move. Now he's got the Dustbuster, and because of the weird time aspects of this place, like, the Suluban shoots at Archer, and it discharges the energy, but in such a slow way that Archer can just kind of Neo himself around the beam.
Yeah.
And then the fight continues, and right at the moment that things become kind of lethal and spill out into the corridor, Archer gets beamed away by the Enterprise using the transporter.
You can just do that.
How did they do that?
Incredible! Sorry, Captain. We had no other choice.
I love this. Like, as soon as Archer's on board, they're like, gun it. Let's get the hell out of here. And where they gun it to is Kronos.
Yeah, which is looking very, like, clear-skied and crisp in a way that I've never seen Kronos look.
It really looks great. A lot of bells and gongs.
Yeah. I mean, the High Council chambers look exactly as they ever have.
It kind of seems like they're interrupting something important here when they walk in and present Klang.
Yeah. Klang and a few Starfleets show up to the council chambers, and there's that dramatic like pull open the doors move.
So the leader guy takes out a knife and he slashes Klang's hand, and then he puts some of that blood into a computer, and what pops up onto the screen is Mr. DNA.
The code is in your blood. Sarin found holes in your frog DNA and put information about how the Suluban are stoking tensions within the Empire right in there.
Klingon blood is pink, so we can achieve a PG-13 rating.
Yeah, this is another example of TV Klingons having redder blood than movie Klingons.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Lower Decks had the right idea with this. Stick with the pink Pepto-Bismol blood.
What do you think happens to Klang after they leave? It sure seems like he's going to die, right?
Yeah.
Like, he was captured by humans and Suluban, both of which are viewed as kind of beneath the Klingons, kind of the alien trash of the galaxy at this moment in time, right?
Yeah. Like, the Klingons are aware of the humans because of the diplomatic situation, W/R/T Klang.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first time humans have made any kind of contact with them.
Right. Finally, on Enterprise in Archer's ready room, he's telling T'Pol and W that their orders now, hey, now that we're out here, we're not turning around. We're going to keep moving forward. But what happens to T'Pol now? He makes sure to make this moment about him.
I was thinking, a Vulcan science officer could come in handy.
He wants T'Pol to stay, but only if she can make it look like T'Pol wants to stay, like it's coming from her.
Right.
Can she help him out with that?
He's like, look how much we've grown as a species. I am here asking you secretly to date me.
I'm just a man asking a Vulcan to ask her bosses to stay on board my ship.
Yeah. That seems like it's a yes, and they're off to their next adventure, which is just like a first contact. Like, we heard that there's non-humanoid species a couple of systems over, and we end on another little flashback of Jonathan Archer mastering the art of flying his model rocket ship with his dad. Fade to black, end of pilot. Adam, did you like this first episode of Star Trek: Enterprise?
I can't pay.
Could late.
Got no case.
Tempting fate.
Well, to use a word we've thrown around a bunch in this episode, I thought this was a little bit of a clang.
No.
I think for a couple of reasons. I thought a lot about the Mercury and Apollo space programs when I was watching this episode. And just like the thing about those astronauts, the weird thing about them is how totally exceptional they were and also totally fucking weird. Like emotionally and psychologically, because they had to find people who were extremely intelligent and talented and also crazy enough to do the things that they needed to do.
Right.
And so I'm meeting all of these characters for the first time, and this is basically a brand new space program for the people of Earth. And I'm observing their behavior and their interactions with folks, and I'm like, I would really like to know what is exceptional about any of these people. Because all I'm seeing are a bunch of folks that like don't get along. I understand you to make an interesting television show, you need conflict and emotion and all the rest, like to create vibrant stories. But like a part of that, when you're telling stories about exploration, you know, made up of like the best of humanity and so forth, I thought there would be a little bit of that Mercury, Apollo DNA, like a little bit of that steely stuff. And like, this ain't NASA at all. At all. And I'm wondering how soon we get to a little bit of that part, because this was meant to introduce us to characters via conflict instead of via competence. And maybe on every other previous Star Trek series we've gotten, it's been about that competence and just trickling out a little bit of the other stuff. And this series seems to begin as a spin on that in a way that didn't quite work for me yet. Maybe all of that other stuff is to come, and I hope it is. But that part was weird to me. What I did really like was how much this felt like an open world video game where you're in level 1, but you've strayed a little too far afield. Like that aspect of being like outthought, outgunned, out everything. Once you're far out in deep space, that was really interesting to me. And finally, I can't get with the sideburns. Why do we have late 90s, early 2000s sideburns here? Like, give me those fucking Star Trek dagger sideburns.
Yeah.
I missed them badly.
Yeah, they need the Jagger sideburns. I mean, I guess they just hadn't invented that yet in this era.
I guess. Yeah, a lot of potential here. I think that's where I'm at with it. I wish it were better. What about you?
Well, I felt a lot better about this than I think you did.
Okay.
I thought it was a really nice story. I kept thinking about how good it is from the perspective of somebody who has not watched Star Trek before. Like, I think it does a great job of implying a lot about like the richness of this world that we are going to be getting into in a way that would be fun for a first-time viewer, and was also fun for me as a like seasoned Trek enjoyer to like imagine characters that had not heard about Klingons before. Like the guy's like getting his mind around pronouncing the name Klingons in that early scene, and like Vulcans that are like more alien than they are in subsequent series. And I really loved the sets in general. You know, the alien bazaar is like whatever, but like the set of the NX-01 Enterprise is awesome to me. Love the way Six Bay looks. I love the way the bridge looks. I think that like my main gripe so far is just Bakula. Like I don't quite know what he's going for with this character. Like, because
I mean, I just get folksy. That's the headline.
But it's like it feels like put on folksiness, you know, like in the way of a person who has tons of power and is like kind of performing folksiness to make himself more approachable or something.
There's nothing interesting about a character who has a great dad and a great and supportive family. You know, like that part.
That's why I've dedicated my life to failing my son. I want him to be interesting, you know?
You're going to make a very interesting Daron. Didn't it also feel like, this is going to sound like a virtue signal, and I fucking promise it's not, but like to go from Voyager and many competent female characters to back into two female characters who so far the introductions are super rockin' tits and scared lady. Like, I really, really, really hope we get some good stories for those characters.
Yeah.
Because right now it's lube and scaries, and I hope there's more than that.
Agreed. Well, I'm looking forward to exploring all of this with you, but I'm also looking forward to exploring the Priority 1 inbox, Adam. Do you want to go check in there?
Oh, Ben, they're covered in lube.
Wow.
Oh, and it's not water soluble. It's getting everywhere.
Oh, it's dissolving the condom. Oopsies.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Need a supplemental income. Supplemental income? Supplemental. Supplemental. Yeah, it's extra.
The interest alone could be enough to buy this ship.
Ben, our first Priority 1 message is of a personal nature. It's from Zach the Mortician. It's to anybody. Their message goes like this. Sup? I saw the first night of Wrath of Khan in Chicago. It's freaking great. Till my girlfriend, now wife, left me in the merch line with anxiety. I just watched the Spectacular special and really loved it. Not a fan of the Bashir piss thing you do, but whatever, I'll deal. Thanks, Fisher, and the sister that be men's to me. From Zach.
Wow, Zach the Mortician. I'm surprised you don't love the Bashir piss thing, given what you probably do in your work as a mortician, working with, fluids of all kinds.
Yeah, maybe that's too close to home.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Who knows what fucked up shit Phlox gets into.
I know.
Our next Priority 1 message is from Ben, long time, first time, and it's to Ben and Adam, and it goes like this. I hope this will be aired during Enterprise. Can I request the Vichy French guy singing "This is a war crime" to the tune of the Enterprise theme song? Also, if you ever tour the Southeast, please consider the beautiful city of Wilmington, NC.
Oh, yeah.
See where the worst Iron Man movie was filmed. Weekend at Bernie's, Empire Records. Drink some great local beers. Hit the beach. Wow. Boy, I would love to go to Wilmington for a show. It could happen. This is a war crime as theme song for Enterprise. Maybe that's something that we can get into the rotation for interstitials. This is a war crime. Who make all of this propaganda?
That's fun. Well, Priority 1 messages are a great way to support the show. And now that we're getting started with the new series, we've got some capacity for your message. Ahead, you just go to MaximumFun.org/Jumbotron. Write out some words. Those will come out of our mouths. That's a great way to support our shows.
Indeed. Thank you to everyone who does it. Hey, Adam.
What's that, Ben?
Did you find yourself a drunk Shimoda in the pilot episode of Star Trek: Enterprise?
Incredible. Drunk Shimoda!
Well, I'll start by describing what a drunk Shimoda is for folks who might be coming to the show anew. You might remember from the Naked Now episode in TNG, our engineer Shimoda, the drunkest and most faded character in that episode, became sort of a mascot for the show and became a segment for the shows that followed, in that if there's ever a character or a moment that catches our eye that suggests that a person was having the most fun or acting the weirdest or maybe just being a little anachronistic.
I feel too good for that.
That's our drunk Shimoda. And for this pilot episode of Enterprise, I think I'm going to make mine Captain Archer. He's kind of action Archer everywhere, and I get that given the era of Star Trek we're dealing with. But, like, he is so hot about the Vulcans. He just barges into that room with all the diplomats. Like, he's given a wide berth.
Yeah.
I don't admire him as a commanding officer right now. Like, I don't want to follow that guy's lead. I don't know what's exceptional about him. I think I'm just going to make him my Shimoda for that reason. Like, I hope he proves it, and I hope he proves it soon. He's just all over the place, and maybe that's the best description of a drunk Shimoda character we've got. What about you?
I'm going to give it to him as well. Not for that, but for that moment after he kisses Sarin and she gets all bumpy and it turns into a "this has never happened before." Like,
that's fun.
It's because I'm so into you.
You know, I'm like a captain of a certain age, and like, you can't just expect things to work perfectly 100% of the time. And look, like, I'm tired. I'm tired from this mission. I had all that beef earlier. God, that was a heavy dinner.
Yeah.
So that'll happen.
Totally. So, yeah, daily double for the drunk Shimodas.
Yeah.
Face of the fart.
Okay, we got to go to the game of Buttholes right now and roll for the next episode. Do you want to head over there and I'll tell you a little bit about the next episode, Adam?
Sure thing, Ben. If you're new to the show, starting now, you should know that we tend to gamify our episodes. At the end of every recording, we'll roll a die, and then our little ship will go across the game board. And on that game board, there are fun squares that order us to experience the recording in myriad ways.
Yeah, we got a brand new game for this series. So our next episode is Season 1, Episode 3, Fight or Flight. The crew comes across an abandoned ship of dead aliens.
Are they frozen? Is this another Naked Now episode?
It's just an excuse to get T'Pol to, like, fuck a bunch of characters.
Ben, you've told us what the next episode is going to be, and now we need to figure out how we're going to enjoy it. And for that, we are going to unveil a brand new version of the hit board game associated with the hit Star Trek podcast we do. It has a brand new name, even.
It does.
I am so excited to introduce FODs to the game of Buttholes, Will of the Riker, Quantum Leap. What do you think of that?
Oh, man. It's even pithier than before.
That name might get longer.
Yeah.
the longer we play the game.
Thank you to everybody in the FOD community who submitted pitches for ideas. We kind of scraped them all up and distilled many of them down into what is on this board. And you can head to gach.biz/game to check out all of the changes that have been made. There's a bunch of new squares. A couple of squares have been retired, but also a brand new mechanic to the game. No more chutes and ladders. No more inching along. We roll a D100 every single time with this game.
I like that idea. It feels like space exploration itself. It's not often in a straight line. You're going all over the place. Who knows what you'll encounter?
Yeah, and that's very on brand for this series.
We know what we're going to encounter, Ben. You want to talk about a couple of these brand new squares for this brand new edition?
Let's talk about it.
We also did a rebrand of a couple of pre-existing squares. Porthos ate my notes being an example of this. If we land on this square, both of the hosts will do the show without notes. Because Porthos ate them, whoever that is.
You sure did.
I know that's the dog. Shut up.
And then Read Alert has replaced Canard with Damar, and that is a pineapple beverage square instead of a Canard square.
That's a square that'll benefit both of us and our lovely romantic companions.
Well, assuming that they want to engage in that kind of bullshit.
You know how much we love the theme song to this brand new version of Greatest Generation, Ben. This next square has us recording new lyrics to the theme song, and then that version of the song plays for the next episode. So, for example, if we hit this square this time, we will have to create lyrics that will play on the episode upcoming. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
based on our viewing of that episode, one of us or both of us is going to do this.
I think we can collaborate on the lyrics, and then we just have to send off our our files to the Goose. We didn't ask the Goose if this was an okay idea beforehand.
Faith of the Heart square. Pretty heavy. Okay.
So for Fight or Flight, it would be like, it's been a lot of dead aliens filling up this abandoned ship. Something like that.
Woof. Yeah. That's, fortunately, that's going to be the sort of square that does not cripple the entire episode, just its very beginning.
Do I have to remember all those fucking harmonies?
Of course you do.
Oh, man. God damn it. This square sucks.
I don't know who the Xindi are, but the Xindi arc square means that the hosts must take shots of 5 different alcohols during the episode.
Yeah. We didn't figure out if that's like you take 5 shots right at the beginning and then record, or if you can space it out. And we'll probably have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
FODs who live in Seattle will probably assume that I'm just going to call that the Earl's Square.
Decontamination chair square, of course. We record in our underpants, and many more to check out on the board game website.
Oh yeah,
we got some big thanks to give out. Craig Anderson and Felipe Sobriero jumped into action. We kept promising them that we were going to send them notes for what things we wanted to do with the game, and we were like weeks and weeks late, and they got it done in time anyways. So we really, really appreciate all of their great work. And we should also thank Andrew Wong Hoyer, who contributed some web design to the game. But it's all updated and looking spiffy. And why don't you go ahead and roll that bone, Adam?
You're required to learn as you play. Roll.
All right, Ben, our game piece is not anywhere, and I'm about to roll a 100-sided die to determine where it will appear first.
Okay.
Here we go.
Let's do it.
Ben, I've rolled a 45.
Chula!
Did I win?
Hardly.
45 is what I've rolled. That is in an empty area of space. It is also how old I am.
Wow.
As of this year. Coincidental.
So that's kind of like landing on something.
Oh, it's like landing on something horrible, and it only gets worse as time goes on. Square 45 is it on this brand new game of Buttholes Will of the Riker Quantum Leap. So look out for more of this in the seasons and episodes ahead.
I'm so excited for more of this fucking bullshit.
So many weird squares out there. Go to gawk.biz/game to check out all the fun squares.
Yeah. Some exciting stuff happening over on the Game of Buttholes. Go check it out. We just have some credits to do, and we're going to get out of here. Of course, this show is produced and edited by Wynde Priddy. Our social media director is Rob Adler, and our consigliere is Bill Tilley, who is the person you will reach if you slide into the DMs on socials and want to send something in for a future Code 47, where we open fan packages and mail on the show. Thank you so much to everyone who supports the show at MaximumFun.org/join. And thanks so much to the great Adam Ragusia, who made
our brand new theme song.
Now our theme song. With that, we will be back at you next time with another great episode of Star Trek Voyager. With another great episode of Star Trek Enterprise and an episode of the Greatest Generation Enterprise where, I mean, if they're not frozen and drunk, we certainly probably should be, right?
Absolutely.
Make it so.
That was a very we're just innocent men snort that I just had.
We're normal men.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows
supported directly
by you.